I noticed him on a Tuesday, which felt wrong somehow. Tuesday is the most forgettable day of the week. No drama, no promise, just the tired middle of things. But there he was, dropping into the empty seat beside me in AP English, and suddenly Tuesday had weight. His name was Eli Navarro. I knew that much from the roll call Mrs. Patterson read without looking up. He had dark hair that fell across his forehead in a way that seemed accidental but probably wasn't. And he smelled faintly of cedar and cold air, as though he'd walked through an entire forest just to get to third period. I am Maya Reyes. I keep lists, color code my notes, and have never once been late to class. I do not, as a rule, pay attention to boys who smell like forests. And yet, he borrowed a pen from me that first day. Mine was the only hand that shot up when he asked the room. It was my favorite pen, a fine-tip black Stedler, and he returned it at the end of class with a small thanks and a look that lasted exactly 1 second too long. I told myself it meant nothing. I recapped my pen and went to calculus. By the third week, Eli had a habit of writing things in the margins of his notebook and tilting it toward me, as if we were passing notes without the paper ever leaving the desk. One day, it was a tiny, surprisingly accurate sketch of Mrs. Patterson's reading glasses. Another day, a single question. Do you think Gatsby actually loved Daisy, or just the idea of her? I stared at it for a moment, then borrowed his pen. My Stedler, actually, which he seemed to have quietly adopted, and wrote beneath his question, the idea. Always the idea. Real people are too complicated to worship. He read it. A slow smile crossed his face, the kind that starts at one corner and takes its time. He didn't write anything back. He just nodded, like I'd confirmed something he'd already suspected. That night I lay in bed thinking about that nod for an embarrassingly long time. My best friend Priya, who has an uncanny ability to read me through text messages alone, sent, "You're doing that thing where you analyze something to death instead of just feeling it, aren't you?" It wasn't a question. I typed back, "Absolutely not." She sent a single eye roll emoji. She was right, of course. She always is. It happened by accident. Or at least I told myself it did. I always stayed late in the library on Thursdays to work on college essays. The library at 4 p.m. is its own quiet universe. Golden light through tall windows, the radiator ticking, the librarian Ms. Cho humming something indistinct behind the reference desk. Eli was already there, sitting at the long oak table I considered mine, surrounded by index cards and looking genuinely lost. I could have chosen a different table. There were 6 others. I sat across from him. He glanced up, surprised, then relieved in a way that made my chest do something inconvenient. "You're good at English," he said, without preamble. I have no idea how to start this personal statement. "What are you trying to say?" I asked. "That's the problem. I don't know." We stayed until Ms. Cho turned off half the lights at 5:45 as a gentle hint. By then, Eli had 3 solid paragraphs about growing up translating for his grandmother at doctor's appointments, and how those afternoons taught him that language is really just another word for love. I read the last line and felt something shift quietly inside me, like furniture rearranging itself in a room I'd thought I knew. "This is really good," I said, and I meant it in more ways than I knew how to explain. He looked at me. "I couldn't have gotten there without you." The radiator ticked. Outside, the November dark had settled early over the parking lot. "Same time next Thursday?" I asked, aiming for casual. "I'll be here," he said. There was a night in December when everything almost happened and then didn't, and I replayed it so many times afterward that it started to feel like a film I'd watched, rather than a life I'd lived. The winter formal. Priya had convinced me to go, which is to say she showed up at my house with my green dress already pressed and refused to leave until I put it on. The gymnasium had been transformed into something genuinely beautiful. All white lights and silver streamers, the kind of effort that makes you briefly forget it is, at its core, still a gymnasium. Eli found me by the punch table, which is where I always end up at parties, near the snacks, at the edge of things, comfortable in the margins. He looked different in a button-down shirt. collar open, a little nervous in a way I'd never seen at school. We talked for a long time, about his grandmother's arroz con leche, about the college I was applying to, early decision, and whether I actually wanted to go or just thought I should. About how strange it was that in 8 months, all of this, the punch table, the silver streamers, Mrs. Patterson, the oak library table, would be memory. "Does that scare you?" he asked. "Everything scares me a little," I admitted. It was the most honest thing I'd said to anyone all year. He looked at me then with an expression I couldn't quite name. He opened his mouth. And then someone called his name from across the room, a friend with a camera wanting a group photo, and the moment folded closed like a book. He squeezed my hand once before he left. Quick, warm, deliberate. I stood by the punch table and felt the ghost of it for the rest of the night. January came in cold and clarifying. On the first day back, I found a folded note tucked inside my copy of The Great Gatsby, which I'd lent Eli before break, and he'd returned to my locker. The note was written on a torn index card in his cramped, slanting handwriting. It said, "I've been thinking about what you wrote in October, about real people being too complicated to worship. I think you were right. I'm not interested in the idea of you, Maya. I'm interested in you. The you that color codes her notes and stays late on Thursdays and tells the truth even when it's inconvenient. That's the person I want to know better. If you want that too, coffee after school? No library, no essays, just us." I read it 3 times standing at my locker while the hallway noise crashed around me. I took out my Statler, the one I'd gotten back from him at some point and then somehow lost again, and which had, I now realized, been inside the book, and wrote on the back of the card, "Yes, obviously yes." I returned it to his locker before first period. In AP English, he sat down beside me and I didn't look at him, and he didn't look at me, and we were both smiling so hard it probably looked ridiculous. Mrs. Patterson called the class to order. Under the desk, so quietly it might not have happened at all, his hand found mine. Outside, the January sky was pale and wide and full of something that felt, for the first time in a long time, like beginning.